Hi, you made it to my channel, Niche Gaming. Today I'm going to review the Western Star 6900 TwinSteer. As with all of my reviews, they're based on New Game Plus settings and use in the Michigan region. Even when I review trucks that will be used in other regions, those reviews will still be based on my New Game Plus rules, as part of the same playthrough. How good a truck is in SnowRunner, how affordable it is, how accessible its upgrades are, how effective it is at the jobs you need at that stage of the game. This is all relative to the type of playthrough you start up, what rules you set, and how good the truck objectively is in this game. If I were playing a hard mode playthrough, I would end up having to use a lot more of the trucks the game gives you since there is so little money to do much of anything in that mode. And maybe I would have a completely different strategy for handling Michigan and all of the other regions. Just as an example, I may decide to scout all of the SnowRunner's regions first, as if we were a scouting company, just to get the ranking up, find all upgrades, and get enough money to use all of the trucks we found across all regions at their best, fully upgraded. Since I'm not playing hard mode, I can buy a lot more trucks, and it is my intention to get as many trucks as possible in my playthrough. As I said in my New Game Plus rules video, you can watch that New Game Plus video just to get an idea of why I set up the playthrough the way I do. It is important to note that the rules you set or what type of playthrough does affect in many ways what truck will be best, although there is an objectivity to how good trucks are. There's an objectivity and there's a relativity. The objectivity is the truck is good as it is, as SnowRunner has allowed it to be, and then there's a relativity because of the type of playthrough you set up. One of the reasons why I increased the payouts to 3 times normal is so that I could afford to get the maximum amount of trucks during my playthrough of all regions in SnowRunner. I love experiencing the advantages and disadvantages of one truck versus the other and using all of their best features to efficiently complete all of the regions, contracts, tasks, and contests. I do try to keep the realistic simulation aspect a factor, and my New Game Plus rules reflect that. While I increase the payouts by 3 times, I increase the auto load costs, I increase the recovered costs, many other things that I do to try to balance fun and being able to buy all the trucks and try and everything with some sort of realistic or challenging gameplay. With all that context in mind, let's talk about the Western Star 6900 TwinSteer. The White Motor Company started their Western Star division of trucks back in 1967. In 1981, White was bought out by Volvo, but the Western Star brand was sold to other owners because it wasn't part of the deal White made with Volvo. In 1983, Western Star, under the ownership of Bow Valley Resources and the Nova Corporation, entered the Australian market. And then in 1989, the 6900 series was launched, being offered in 2 variants, Extreme Duty and TwinSteer. The Australian market was important because this truck still has a following on the Australian market. And Australian market obviously is known to be with a lot more rugged terrain in North America and many other places. So the Australian market has a lot more use for a truck like this that's made for off-road and rugged terrain and for those type of industries. Western Star ownership changed hands a few more times until it found a permanent home under DaimlerChrystler in the year 2000, becoming part of their Freightliner Trucks Division. While the White Company has been lost to history, the Western Star is a brand that produces modern-day trucks. In 2022, with the launch of its X series of trucks, Western Star is not advertising the 6900 series much. It is an older series, no doubt, but that doesn't mean that it is discontinued. Because the 6900 Extreme Duty and TwinSteer are most frequently used by the mining and oil industries, their promotion doesn't have to be visible to the general public. In my research, I saw Daimler's brochures and other dealer websites offering this truck as recently as 2018. In all likelihood, the Western Star XD and TS both can be special ordered, and so the truck is still being manufactured. On the Western Star TwinSteer commercial tech sheet, it says that it's, quote, engineered for increased maneuverability and improved ride without compromising load rating. This truck is almost exclusively used for the heaviest jobs on construction sites, oil fields, and mines. It was also used for logging, as a dump truck, vehicle transport, and towing and recovery. In SnowRunner, the Western Star 6900 TwinSteer is recovered by completing the No Country for Old Trucks task in Island Lake. This requires you to repair the truck with quite a bit of spare parts and then refuel its 360-liter tank. As I recall, all of its upgrades, except for the off-road gearbox and its second engine upgrade, are not found in Michigan. Its all-wheel drive upgrade is found in Kola Peninsula, and its race suspension and highest engine upgrades are found in Alaska. The truck is the biggest we have recovered up until this point, and therefore its upgrades will also be the most expensive. It is debatable whether you want to invest in the upgrades for this truck or just sell it. Yes, it's powerful, but it has a major insurmountable flaw. It is limited only to transporting up to 4 cargo slots. It has no external add-on options, and the cargo space surface cannot be changed out. This was obviously not a restriction it had in real life, but we'll talk about that more in detail later. It also cannot attach trailers. You do have to pair it with a truck that has a crane because, again, it has no external add-on options. Your other option is to auto-load cargo onto it. Its body balance is surprisingly stable considering its length-to-width ratio, but you still have to be careful. While the front tires do steer at a very sharp angle, because it is so long, it has a very large turning radius. Without the TwinSteer, the front tandem axle turning wheels, this would have had a horrendously large, probably the largest turning radius in the entire game. Its size also limits where it can go. With the P16 it's more because of its width, but with this truck it's got all to do with its extra large length. The P16 sometimes can't go through crevices between rocks and everything like other trucks can because it's just way too wide. It would simply get stuck. Whereas this is, compared to the heavy duty truck, it's the same width essentially, but the length is just longer than I think any truck in this entire game. And being such a large behemoth, it has very high fuel consumption. Pretty much as expected, but still a little disappointing. Now, using large 63-inch off-road tires after suspension upgrade will give you excellent performance in the mud and on off-road. It's a great hauler, excellent in the mud, and has one of the most powerful engines in the game. However, it's limited in its applications due to its size, no external add-ons, and inability to attach trailers. Now let's talk about the dimensions and design of this truck. Length 15.67 meters, width 2.49 meters, length to width ratio 6.293. Definitely the largest we've come across and probably in the entire game. The weight is around 44,313 pounds. That's around about 22 tons. Body balance I rate as below average. In real life, in terms of size, the Western Star 6900 TwinSteer had two main options, the 8x4 or the 10x6. The length of the 8x4 version is 15.67 meters, as I mentioned earlier, because that's the version of the truck that the game uses. The length of its 10x6 version is 16.2 meters. If you're wondering what a 10x6 is, yeah, that's not that common even in the trucking world. The 10x6 is a rear tridem axle. That's 3 axles acting as one, and a front tandem axle, the 2 axles used for its TwinSteer. With all hauling trucks, you have a rear tandem axle, so it's 2 sets of wheels with some reasonable amount of space but fairly close to each other, acting as a tandem axle to give power to the truck, and that's where the power usually is. It's in the rear tandem axle. Well, with a 10x6, it would be a tridem axle. It would be 3 sets of wheels, doubled wheels, like you have with all hauling trucks, that provide the power and, of course, balance and everything for the truck. And of course, the front tandem axle is simply the TwinSteer. That is also rare, but it's such a big truck, it needs something like that for maneuverability. So the TwinSteer is going to be the single wheels, of course, it's because of the front tandem axle. Just like with all the hauling trucks, the front wheels need more maneuverability for turning. So they're single wheels, and the back wheels are always double wheels. The 8x4 is simply front tandem axle, the TwinSteer, and the rear tandem axle. This is the version that the game gives us, that SnowRunner gives us. Another thing about the look and the frame, this was a highly customizable truck in real life. Special ordered all of that stuff directly from the manufacturer, from Western Star. And therefore would come standard, like all trucks, with its wheel and complete options. This truck doesn't look like it would if you got it fresh from the factory. Because you see the wheels, you don't see a flatbed as part of the frame. The frame is just, you'll see the wheels, you'll see the truck's trailer attachment, all that stuff. Or the hitch part where you attach the trailers to. So you see all of that. You'll see the actual frame of the truck like that. And it's the same in real life. But for some weird reason, they just locked it with this frame here. I don't get it. So you'd see the back wheels and of course the trailer, but the wheels were situated a little bit different because they didn't want to give you that normal looking frame of any truck. They just had the flatbed and they situated the wheels right at the back. The wheels are a little bit more closer to the center, a little bit closer. And of course you have room for the trailer and everything to connect. Now you had this trailer equipped with a flatbed, but it didn't have the limitations it would have in this game. You could use it as a flatbed and have the heaviest cargo loaded onto it. You can still do that in this game. I think there are heavier cargoes later, but it's the lack of options that really hurt this truck. It's usefulness for you in your playthrough. Now because of the weight, this truck being in SnowRunner's heavy category, it resists tipping over. But with such a high length to width ratio, being so much longer than it is wide, it's hard for it to stay upright. As you can see in my playthrough, this truck resisted tipping over, probably because of its sheer weight, but you'd better have a strong stomach as there are going to be many close calls throughout. Plus you have to be super careful to avoid as much uneven land as possible. Going through the mud is fine, but make sure to avoid uneven land. Again, as much as possible. There are times you just can't. You can try to take wider turns to avoid or going through the uneven land. It's the angles. You got to be really careful with the angles. But even when you don't, or the truck is just about to tip over, I was pleasantly surprised with the truck being able to resist that, probably because of the weight. But the frame is just so much longer than it is wide, and the positioning of the wheels and everything. This truck, I have to give it a below average body balance. It would be worse were it not for the truck resisting tipping over because of probably the weight. And you do have to be smart about it. So if it's tipping over to the right, maybe you turn the wheels that way. You just use your common sense and try to prevent the truck from tipping over. So tipping over one way, try to counter that tipping over in some way. Tipping over is highly possible. In my testing and those kind of playthroughs, when you actually use this truck, it can easily tip over. It can easily tip over if you test it, or if you don't try to prevent it from tipping over by just driving a little smarter. This is not one of those trucks that needs to be converted to an off-roader, as most of its real-life applications are made for off-road industries. That's why all-wheel drive came standard from the manufacturer for the 8x4 variant of the Western Star 6900 TwinSteer. You had the 8x4 and of course 8x8 when you look at the all-wheel drive, so the front tandem axle and the rear tandem axle both getting power, the TwinSteer getting power. So that's the 8x8 all-wheel drive. It is important to know that there was a 10x6 version in real life, but it's not offered in the game. The differential lock is no different than the rest of the heavy-duty trucks. That is, it's switchable at low gears, and it comes stock, meaning it doesn't require upgrading. So it's not like the P12, P16 where you have always on diff lock or something like that. No, it's only available at low gears, so it works more similar to the heavy-duty trucks. And same thing with the off-road gearbox. It doesn't have the advanced special or anything like that from P12, P16. It actually gets the off-road gearbox, which is used by your typical heavy-duty class. And that gives you your high gear, and it gives you your 2 extra low gears, low plus and low minus, and of course low regular. The all-wheel drive is switchable, but it's located all the way in the Kola Peninsula, the upgrade for it. I of course use my New Game Plus settings so that I can upgrade my truck, so I can upgrade any truck. But I have to say, while I can understand the game putting a highway truck's upgrades in a future region because they want you to regard it as a highway truck while you're playing in Michigan, like with the GMC MH9500, that's exactly what they did. They put the all-wheel drive upgrade in a future region, so basically as long as you use that truck in Michigan, it's going to be a highway truck. And you want to keep it out of the heavy mud. With this truck, the 6900 TwinSteer, it doesn't make any sense as this truck would by default an off-road. It was supposed to be on the construction sites, on oil fields, in mines, doing logging, heaviest transport, and all of it pretty much off-road, in the heavy mud and everything. Should have had better mud tires as well. If I were playing on hard mode, this would render this truck unusable for the playthrough. Because again, probably by the time you get to Kola Peninsula, and I would keep the truck inside the garage, just so you could sell off the upgrades, and then sell the truck. There are definitely trucks that use this engine or even better engine available in other regions or to buy as well. So why wouldn't I just use those trucks and not use it? Because they wouldn't have the limitations that this truck has. Really disappointing that this was a purely all-wheel. I mean, I like the fact that they made it all-wheel drive switchable. That's great, just as it was in real life, 8x4, 8x8. But then all these other restrictions, and then of course you put the all-wheel drive upgrade all the way in Kola Peninsula. By that time, I'll probably have access to many better trucks, even in the hard mode playthrough. So not happy with this, and I think most other people who play in hard mode do in fact end up selling this truck because it's very high fuel consumption, other limitations, and then of course all-wheel drive being all the way in Kola Peninsula. SnowRunner really wanted to disappoint you with this truck. The best off-road tires are the same as the heavy-duty class gets access to, except these are much bigger, and that's a huge advantage. The tires are 63-inch off-road OHS2. That gives you a rating of 0.8 in the asphalt, 3.0 in dry off-road, and 1.8 in the mud. Has the same basic type of chain tires, the MHS1, they're just called something different, MHS1, all chains, 1.2 in the asphalt, 3.0 in the dry off-road, and 1.3 in the mud. And it has 4 different looking mud tires, essentially the same rating and everything. So MHS1, D, MHS1, 2, or 3 mud tires available. 0.5 in the asphalt, so even worse than the off-road in the asphalt. 2.0 in the dry off-road, regular off-road, dirt off-road, and 2.0 in the mud. So 2.0 versus 1.8. Off-road is 1.8, and this is 2.0 in the mud. Not very good mud tires. Like the Paystar 5070 and the P12, the mud tires are only marginally better than its off-roading tires. So it's better to go with the off-road tires. The race suspension doesn't negatively affect body balance too much, and it is a must so that you can get its very large 63-inch tires. Its body balance is mostly affected by its length to width ratio, not the race suspension. So you might as well get it if you're going to use this truck. Having larger tires increases the amount of surface area of the tire that can dig into the mud without actually getting stuck. Larger tires also provide higher ground clearance, which also helps prevent trucks getting stuck in mud, swimming in water, getting stuck in blades of grass or marsh, etc. Also note that this truck does get the OHD1 tires, and they're actually the best off-road tires because they're 1.9 in the mud instead of 1.8, but they aren't offered in 63-inch, they're only 55-inch. And the larger the tire size, the better they perform in mud or water. That's why you should go with the 63-inch off-road OHS2 as its main set. The minor advantage you'd get from 1.9 versus 1.8 is not even close to worth the huge advantage you'll get from 8-inch larger tires. So 63-inch are going to do so much better. It coasts through a lot of the mud because of those large tires, and you don't want to take that one main advantage from this truck. The Western Star 6900's TwinSteer option helps with the turning radius, but there's only so much it can do. So you have to be realistic in your expectation of what the TwinSteer is going to do. If this truck didn't have the TwinSteer option, the turning radius would be much larger. The TwinSteer certainly helps with maneuverability as it was designed to, but because the truck is so much longer than it is wider, such a big truck, it's going to have a very large turning radius no matter what you do. It is debatable whether it's better than the P16s, but either way it's going to be a very large turning radius. If it didn't even have this TwinSteer option, then it would have by far the largest turning radius in the entire game, and it would just be very hard to turn at all with this truck, which would make it almost unusable or pretty much unusable for your SnowRunner playthrough. You do have to make sharp turns a lot of times. You can have some option to turn back and turn again, but you don't have unlimited options to. You gotta have some maneuverability. The truck is a bit too heavy to lose control, even if you were going on the 4th gear of its off-road gearbox, and there's no noticeable terrain feedback, and it's easy to control. I would say the control is very good, has a very large turning radius, and that can be a problem when you try to go fast and turn, but again, as long as you don't drive like a maniac or disregarding all common sense and good driving, not making sharp turns, going fast. So as long as you don't do anything silly, you should be able to control. The wheels don't really lose control, even on asphalt. So I'd say very good control. No noticeable terrain like the Chevys that we've reviewed so far. No noticeable terrain feedback, making it easier to control. Fuel consumption is as expected for this beast of a truck. Gets a fuel tank of 360 liters. Fuel consumption efficiency, it tops out at a level 30.4 liters per minute. As with the off-road gearbox, all-wheel drive on, diff lock on, under heavy load on off-road terrain. As always, consumption depends upon damage status, terrain, gearbox, and load carried on rear tandem or even tridem axle in this case, plus hauled trailers. Spikes go over the stable rating. The real-life fuel tank is 100 to 150 gallons. That's around about 378 to 567 liters for the standard aluminum that this truck would get in real life. And that's one tank, right or left. The steel version is 90 to 120 gallons, 340 to 453 liters, right or left. The real-life steel upgrade is probably what matches the game version of the 360-liter tank. However, it seems that the tank is a dual tank, right and left, instead of right or left. In real life, I believe you have one option, right or left. It could even be dual, but from my reading of the brochure, it seems like it only has a tank on one side. The steel version, because it has that range of 340 to 453 liters, is still on the lower end, what they gave you for this truck, considering the high fuel consumption. I would think maybe it should have like 500 liters, or at least 400 or 450 or something like that. But the steel upgrade only gets up to 120 gallons, which is about 453 liters in real life. But it is within that range, so that's why I think that's what they gave you in the game. It's a steel version. 360 liter tank. And because this truck has no internal add-ons and can't attach trailers, it cannot carry additional fuel. You can winch something to it, like the semi-trailer attached with a low saddle. That's not going to be easy to winch. But you can winch your typical wheeled 1800 liter fuel carriers. Normally those are attached by the hitch as a trailer, but because this truck can't attach trailers, well, you can just use the winch. This truck's engine is the highest torque I've come across in the playthrough thus far. The fuel consumption is therefore expected to be high, but I am shocked that it's this high. The engine can certainly not be considered fuel efficient, and is every bit the fuel-hungry hog that it appears. The Western Star 6900 TwinSteer features superior power, as can be expected of its big rig class. The real-life engine was a Detroit DD16 diesel inline 6-cylinder, 15.6 liter displacement, 600 horsepower at 1800 RPM, 2050 pound-foot torque at 975 RPM, with a max gross combination weight of 250,000 pounds, around about 125 tons. The only truck we've had that has a real-life version better than this truck is possibly the P12. Not possibly one version or it had of the P12 was upgraded to higher than this, but the P12 that is more typical or commercial was more in line with the P16, and this was the superior truck if you look at it from that perspective. But the P12 did offer a 700 horsepower engine. This truck perhaps could have upgraded to that, but I didn't see anything like that in its commercially available upgrades. This is the highest known upgrade for this truck, this 600 horsepower beast. The game engine is quite different. It's far superior to the P12, P16, which are the other two powerful trucks, and of course the Caterpillar CT681, the three most powerful engines we've dealt with besides this truck that I play through in this Michigan playthrough. So this is the most powerful truck we've come across. It uses the game engine called Westline V16 M2450 as its highest upgrade. It gives you a 250,000 torque. That's according to MapRunner stats, much higher than the 210,000 torque that you get with the P12 and P16. The mass is actually less than the P12, P16, so it's more power to weight ratio, which is great. That's one of the reasons why it's such a good hauler. The mass is 20,100. Power to weight ratio is 2,500 over 201, which is around about 12.438. The real-life engine was a beast, used only for the heaviest and most demanding off-road industries, mining, oil, and construction. The SnowRunner version of its engine quite accurately reflects that because this truck does host one of the most powerful engines of the game, shared by other trucks of its big rig class. There are other trucks that use this engine upgrade, the Westline V16 M2450, and there may be more powerful engines. I just haven't come across them yet in my playthrough. But this is definitely one of the most powerful trucks, and it's definitely in the big rig class. Now we deal with in detail the issues to which we have been alluding for this entire video review. This truck's actual functionality, usability, and reliability. It cannot equip any external add-ons. It is stuck with its own 4 cargo slot flatbed. Now while you can see this flatbed in some pictures in real life, you also see this truck used for logging, construction, mining, vehicle transport, towing and recovery, and you see it has every type of customization and add-on available used for these functions. Now why did SnowRunner nerf this truck? I'm not sure. Maybe for adding challenge or making you buy some DLCs when the game first launched, maybe for gameplay balance. I mean, any way you look at it, this is not realistic, not good simulation, and there is no good reason why this truck should not be customizable. Such a powerful truck should have access to high and low saddle transport, logging add-ons, and some even other special fuel tank add-ons. Some of the large trucks have the larger internal add-on fuel tank. Why not give it at least those options? All of those options should be available. It does not match what it could do in real life, and this is not good from the simulation standpoint. The New Game Plus settings cannot help with this problem. Only mods can. And this is where I understand people using mods. This is one of those trucks. The other trucks, maybe there's some minor disappointment here and there, but the truck is still usable. This truck, because of the way they nerfed it, it makes it hard to justify its use. You have to kind of go out of your way to try to make a use for it, to make a place for it in your fleet. Just because you really want to use the power and you really want to coast through the mud with these big 63-inch tires. Those other trucks had so much trouble going through the mud, this just coasts right through it. But then you have this huge restriction on top of some of the other flaws we mentioned before. There's nothing that the New Game Plus rules can do for that. The truck will be nerfed as it is. A lot of the other trucks, maybe minor imperfections like Scout 800 maybe is not as good as it was in real life. Some imperfections here and there in the way SnowRunner resembled the truck or had the game version compared to the real life version. All of it, I guess I can understand. But the way they did this truck, I just don't like it. It is probably for commercial reasons or their commercial reasons just to be able to sell trucks. I don't like that. I don't like what they did to this truck. And that's why a lot of people just use mods, but I've not had good experience with modding in my gaming life. I try to avoid mods if at all possible because mods do affect the stability of the game. And the developers will just raise their hands and say, well, hey, we didn't ask you to use mods. You chose to use mods, and so that's on you. And we're not going to do anything to support it. Then you have to go back to whoever made the mod and hope that they can come up with a patch or something else. I've not had good experience with modding. I'd rather the developers who made the game make it good enough for playing and not have, or fix whatever imperfections they have in a future patch or something. A lot of these trucks should have been fixed in future patches, but unfortunately they were not. Next big thing, it cannot attach trailers. If you're going to make me use a 4 cargo slot flatbed as a fixture, then at least let me attach trailers so I can overload it with 8 pieces, or carry other big trailers so that I can make use of its superior power. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you do this? Only use I found for this truck was that it can hold a large 4-piece cargo, and due to its power and large tires, it travels efficiently through the muddy areas of Island Lake and every such area in Michigan. Of course, you can do this with your white Western Star 4964, with a low saddle trailer or another equal truck. So those large 4-piece cargoes that you need to do for the super orders of Michigan, and some of those Island Lake large drilling oil 4-piece cargo. I mean, you could pick any flatbed ramp trailer. You could use a post-saddle 5-piece cargo flatbed trailer, semi-trailer. And the white Western Star would do just fine. Now, it wouldn't coast through the mud like the Western Star 6900 TwinSteer. It does it better with more ease, but it also would save you a lot of fuel. So it wouldn't be as fun to use as a 6900 TwinSteer when it's just straight mud and there's not too much uneven land. And there is plenty of uneven land, so there's always will be that issue. It'll coast through the mud and the parts that are nice and straight, but then you have to be careful when you go through slightly uneven land, sharp turns, all that stuff. You have to be a lot more careful than you ever did with a white Western Star 4964. So I could have just decided, you know what, I'm not going to use a Western Star 6900 TwinSteer. But I tried to make a use for it. I had to go out of my way to do it. It can load 4 at a time. It's a great hauler. But looking at the terrain and of course what they did to it, the lack of options, is it really worth it to go through all the trouble upgrading this truck so you can use it? And then of course, if you're playing hard mode, you have to wait until you get the all-wheel drive, race suspension, all of that stuff. Without the race suspension, you can't get the 63-inch tires, which significantly affects how well it does in the mud, which is one of the main advantages of the truck to begin with. Since I've already upgraded the truck and use it in Michigan, I may use it in future maps. But what will most probably happen is that I will find a truck that has just as much or more power, large 63-inch tires, and it won't be nerfed by denying it external add-ons and trailers. Once that happens, I'll have no use for this truck and will definitely sell it in my New Game Plus playthrough. In hard mode, I would most definitely sell it. In my New Game Plus rules, I had enough money to upgrade it and make some use of it. It is a great hauler, and for any cargo that can fit into the 4 slots on its flatbed, it will handle it better than most of your other trucks. But when you have a truck this powerful, it's really a big waste to use it for lighter cargo, meaning not logging or other low saddle or high saddle trailer transport. Plus, by the time you get this truck and your fleet to Island Lake, you have done many of Michigan's jobs as well. So there's less things you can try to go out of your way to try to make use of it for. I still did go out of my way to make use of it because I really wanted to experience the power, large mud tires, coasting through the mud the way it does, etc. But if I had to do it over again, even in my New Game Plus rules playthrough, I would just take it to my garage, get its upgrades in the other regions, wait for an equal or better truck to replace this one, sell off the suspension upgrade in Alaska and all-wheel drive upgrade in Kola Peninsula, and then sell the truck. You can use its largest engine upgrade for other trucks of its class. It's a huge letdown, and I don't like what SnowRunner did with this truck. I was really excited to get this truck during my playthrough, but then disappointment had to kick in. This beast was introduced back in 1989, and considering the fact that it is still manufactured today, shows that it has withstood the test of time. This is a good truck and not the kind of truck you nerf the way they SnowRunner did. SnowRunner did not do justice with Western Star 6900 TwinSteer. That's all I have for my review of the Western Star 6900 TwinSteer. If you like my reviews, check out some of my other ones. Check out my New Game Plus video to see how I've been playing my playthrough. But check out all of my truck reviews. Hope you like them. Hope you continue to enjoy them. Don't forget to give me a like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.